After 14 years and 69 flights, the American space shuttle has found a destination, the Russian space station Mir. The historic docking between the shuttle Atlantis and the Mir occurred last June. It ushered in a new era in space exploration. The United States and Russia will now embark on a joint mission to construct an international space station. What is it like to be an American astronaut as we turn this corner? Joining me now from Houston, astronaut Bonnie Dunbar. She was part of the crew of the shuttle Atlantis during the docking mission, and we're pleased to have her, as I said, from Houston. Welcome to the broadcast.
Thank you.
Yeah. Was the goal that drove you always to be in space, to fly, to go places and contribute to our understanding of space exploration?
Yes, I think in the beginning it wasn't a very clear sense of goal, but more of a feeling. I grew up on a farm in eastern Washington State. My parents took me out to see Sputnik when it went over. I watched the American launches, and I just had this intense desire to find out about the world around me, particularly space, to participate in the exploration of space, and as I became an engineer, to really start to solve the unknowns and be part of that.
Talk about the mission and the moment of the docking for us, because it was an extraordinary act of science and precision and, you know, human control as well.
Well, maybe I can describe best what was happening on the flight deck as we were approaching Mir. We were very focused, and each of us had a job. Hoot was actually flying the vehicle.
This is Hoot Gibson.
Hoot Gibson was flying the vehicle. He was the commander. He was sitting in actually the aft part of the cockpit looking through the overhead windows. Greg Harbaugh was to the right of him operating cameras that were pointed at the various targets on the Mir, and also operating a handheld laser that gave us both the distance and the closure speed. Charlie Precourt, the pilot, was operating several laptop computers with programs and information on them that helped us do the navigation and also backed up or worked with the handheld laser. I was working on the VHF radio, which allowed me to talk directly to the Mir crew. So I was speaking with Vladimir Dezhurov, exchanging with him information about where we were and what needed to be done on both the shuttle and on the station Mir prior to docking. And then Ellen Baker, at the same time, was operating several different camera systems doing photographic documentation of the closure. It was very busy, and I think we finally got the latches around and closed. There was a sense of we're finally there, but up until that point we're all very focused and intent on getting where we needed to be.
I raised the question because people who know science exploration have said this is probably the most difficult thing to have been done since the journey to the moon.
I think that is probably very technically accurate, and Hoot Gibson, our commander, probably made it look too easy. He's a fine pilot. He did an excellent job of flying the mating, but what you don't see are the many, many people on the ground in both countries who really helped make that happen through years of development and testing and building hardware and looking at computer models and building the trainers that we trained in. If you look at that comprehensively, it really gives you a good appreciation for what both countries were able to bring to the task, but also the complexity.
How many hours of simulation do you think you spent just on the docking?
Well, Hoot and Charlie and Greg started their training before I came back to the United States in March, and they'd probably been training for 9 months. I would say no less than maybe 8 hours a week in a simulator just doing the docking, because they also have to train for launch and landing and the other mission portions. So I couldn't give you a total number. I know it exists, but let's say it was a big part of their life doing the docking correctly.
Give us a sense of what it's like to be up there, and what's difficult about it, what's interesting about it, what do you want to tell your grandchildren about?
Well, there's two aspects to it. There's the professional side of it. I enjoy the missions because after the long training period, you're the hands, eyes, and ears for many people on the ground, and the successes in the science experiment or the engineering experiment or the new discovery is their success, and you're getting to share in it, and there's a real sense of accomplishment. On a personal level, it's very hard to describe, but I've always felt very much at home in that environment, and it becomes easier each time. First of all, it's a weightless environment, so it's very easy to work in. New perspectives, you work upside down, sideways, it doesn't matter. You can handle large masses easily. But I think ultimately what really stays with you is the view and the perspective that you have that you can send down on camera, but is never quite there, and that's looking back at our planet. We circle the planet once every 90 minutes, and at this high inclination of 51 degrees, we see quite a bit of the planet. It goes by fast, but you can recognize it. And we were up at 200 nautical miles, and at 200 nautical miles, you have a real sense of the curvature of the Earth, and you see it as a planet, and you realize how finite it is. When you're able to see continents and without cloud cover, you see them without borders. You see it as a planet inhabited by people, and you sort of wonder what all came together to make this possible. And then when you look out the other way, back at the moon and the stars, and if you're real lucky and you can see the brightness of Mars, you sort of wonder, what made this all unique for us? And then I go back to when I was 9 years old and became interested in space and wonder, will it be the next generation that goes past the moon and looks at Mars? And really, how do we satisfy this quest for human curiosity and learn how we fit in the whole universe? And that isn't the engineering part of it, it's not the science part, and not the research part of it, but it's very much the human part of it.
Do you look and see how tiny planet Earth is, and look at space, and imagine that we don't necessarily know all that's out there?
Oh, I think we only know a small percentage. When we look up at the sky at night here, we do see stars, and in eastern Washington you can see the whole galaxy.
Yes.
But until you get above the Earth's atmosphere, I don't think you really have an appreciation for what maybe infinity is.
Yeah.
Because it just goes forever.
Where
and
would
there's a lot we don't know.
What if you could visit anywhere? Would Mars be the place you'd like to go?
I think that's really the next logical place. There's a lot we need to do to get there, but it's most within our grasp. And there are only a few finite windows for us to get there because of our orbits. And I think the next best orbit for us is in the year 2018. And that will be the year the next generation can, we'd have to decide now, but the next generation can actually send people there to make the first step on that planet.
In the meantime, just sort of focusing on the space program for a second, I'm more excited about what you say about the sort of what the universe looks like. But for a second, focusing on the next big mission, where are we in the near future going to be in space exploration?
Well, we have two phases occurring now that are part of the space station development. This phase one allows us to reduce technological risk for both the Russian and the U.S. programs by practicing part of what we intend to do on the International Space Station with the Mir. The Mir is an old space station. It's about 10 years old, which is about twice as long as it was designed for, but allows us to practice docking, develop our techniques, develop our hardware, perform life sciences or physiological experiments on crew members to look how we can mitigate adverse effects of microgravity, and perform a lot of technology experiments on the Mir. We'll take that body of data then and apply it into the International Space Station, which includes Europe and Canada and Japan,
right,
and then hopefully have an outpost in low Earth orbit for 20 years then.
And that'll begin when?
The assembly portion of that, I believe, starts in late 1997, early 98. So the two programs actually dovetail together.
Will you go up again?
Well, I hope so, but I haven't made that decision yet. I'm right now debriefing and putting all my thoughts together. It certainly would be an exciting thought.
What was the most important consequence or result of this docking and this exchange beyond the human relationship that developed between two countries, formerly adversaries, working together in space, proving that when the common purpose was there, they could work towards the common end?
Well, one of the major accomplishments is probably not very visible, and that's the fact that we could take two mission control centers and 2 separate engineering organizations and designed systems that would work together and mate together in low Earth orbit. That's a prerequisite anytime you're talking about a larger project such as space station, and there was a lot of effort that went into that, a lot of technological advances made in doing so. The other part, once we docked, of course, we mentioned that that was a major achievement, and then some of the biomedical data that we captured during the docked phase was also important.
Thank you very much, Bonnie.
Thank you.
Bonnie Dunbar from Houston. We'll be right back. Stay with us.